So you're from a region that was firsthand devastated by the money lizard Sackler family, right?
Yes.
Which which Purdue Pharma and everything that happened with OxyContin, like over 500,000 people died at the hands of them.
Yeah.
And
big problem.
yeah, unbelievable, right? And it compromised, they used loopholes, all types of stuff to be able to keep that company going, right? And really to keep killing people. I mean, it seemed undeniable at a certain point that they were murderers.
It was legalized drug dealing is what it was on an industrial scale. I mean, made billions and billions of dollars.
Just got like a slap on the they got a financial slap on the wrist, right?
Very tiny.
But why can't we? Shouldn't they be kicked out of our country? It feels like if we can let in 20 million people into our country, right? That shouldn't be here, or that are not vetted properly to be here.
Don't have the legal right to be here,
right?
I agree. I would say they shouldn't be here, but
why can't we put those motherfuckers on a boat and send them back to wherever the fuck they came from?
That's a good question, man. Look, I think that frankly,
and I don't mean that angrily at you, but it's
no, man. I'm pissed off about it too.
Like, at what point do people lose the opportunity to be here? It seemed like if you killed 500,000 people, you wouldn't be able to hang out anymore.
Or maybe at least you should have a criminal investigation.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the thing that's I mean, like the Sackler family clearly got rich off of an extraordinary amount of human misery and death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are they from? Bring it up real quick.
I want to say they're from New York, maybe, or they're from the Northeast. I'm pretty sure.
The Sackler family originated from Galicia in Poland, and their ancestors were Jewish immigrants. Isaac Sackler.
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, and then they lived in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, that's why I thought they were from New York or Connecticut. I mean, look, the thing that I've never understood about them is that they did get fined, but the fine was such a tiny amount.
It was a couple billion
compared
bucks
to what
or something, right?
I mean, but they made tens and tens of millions of dollars. I mean, these guys were absolutely rolling in the dough. But they, why isn't there a criminal investigation into this, right? Like, if I sold drugs on the street and some person has an overdose and died, you can get felony prosecuted for that, or at least investigated for it. And there was never a criminal, at least as I understand it, never a criminal investigation into what was known.
Yeah, I think they had breached a plea deal of some sort.
Okay.
As the nation continues to grapple with the Sackler family had agreed to pay $6 billion to families and states as part of an agreement to wind down Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin. In exchange, the Sackler family would be immunized from future civil liability claims. Unreal.
Because here's my understanding about it. And I by the way, I think that you always got to be worried about this stuff when you're the child of addiction. Is are there, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever, you got to be you're worried about making sure you yourself don't get hooked on anything, right? Like, I had a minor surgery once, and a very minor surgery, and I was prescribed OxyContin, and I took it for 12 hours.
Got any left? Sorry.
No, because of my wife, because of what I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
And my wife, who was giving me my meds, she was like, "Hey, you ready for your next dose?" And I was like, "Yeah, the pain's not really that bad anymore. I don't really want to take one. But yeah, just give me one because I feel really good when I take it." And then she and I both had this moment of realization, oh shit, right? That is where this whole thing starts. Wow. So she took it to wherever, some disposal site, and we got rid of it, and that was it. But the problem with OxyContin, as I understand it at least, is that it's supposed to be delayed release oxycodone, but the problem that is people figured out, if you just crush it up, then you can just get it all at once.
All released right now.
All released right now. And then the Sackler family, as I understand it, knew about it, right? Purdue Pharma knew this was going on, and they should have been oh, no, okay, we're going to stop this because people are getting killed by overdosing on this stuff because they're taking too high of a dose, and they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That is my understanding fundamentally of what happened is they didn't want to stop it because they were getting rich from it. It's really gross.
I just couldn't imagine that. Imagine people dying and you're making money, but people are dying. Family. The ripple effect of that in this country is still haunting people.
Absolutely. And that's where the heroin epidemic, which is now a fentanyl epidemic, came from. It started
there
as a pill epidemic.
Yeah.
And it actually was, I always used to think it was okay, kind of like me, oh, you have a surgery and you get too many drugs and then eventually you get hooked. What it actually was is they were overprescribing it so much that it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so your nephew comes over and he's 17 and he takes some to his buddies and now they're all hooked on Oxy. And that's what actually happened. And there was just so much of this drug everywhere that it started the epidemic we have now.
Yeah. And the outside, it was like candy coat. It was like you just had to slurp off the outside a little bit, and then you could party.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think you just had to slurp.
I heard about people crushing. I didn't know if you just had to slurp off the outside.
Yeah, I think you did. And yeah.
I don't know if you noticed this, but something I noticed, and it's not to get too political here, but like 5, 6, 7 years ago, you started noticing this, and then it really started picking up a few years ago, where you have somebody who's been, say, 6 months or 9 months sober, and then they don't come to a couple meetings, and then they're just dead. And you realize, like, when people relapsed, when mom was in the worst of it, yeah, there was some dangerous shit out there, but it wasn't nearly as deadly as the stuff that's out there today.
Oh, yeah.
And I really worry about that, right? Because, think about the second chance I got with my mom, and I really worry that the poison that we've got in the streets now is so dangerous that a lot of people would have that second chance, but, you fall off the wagon once. 15 years ago, it's like, oh, that sucks. I'm going to climb back on. Today, you fall off that wagon, it might kill you.
Yeah.
And I really worry about that because I think there are a lot of good people, like mom. It didn't happen like once, right? It's not like she got clean and sober and that was it, right? It's a process. You have to fall
off a few times, yeah. And you got to get back on.
It's a process, man.
Yeah, I've had relapses over the years and had to get back on, and it's tough. And one of the tougher things to do is to get back on. But it's funny because I think if I don't know if I'd be sober if this stuff weren't killing people, to be honest with you. I know that's sad to say, but that keeps me out of the risk of it. It just makes it too...
Makes it a little scarier.
Yeah, that's the thing. It makes it scarier.
Yeah.
But it's also sad that somebody... I mean, this is ridiculous to say, probably, that somebody can't... you can't even do cocaine in this country anymore, And that seems like a crazy thing to say, and... Don't say that. Don't say that. But I said it. But yeah. But don't say that anymore.
I'm going to steal that line. That's going to after the election, though, man.
No.
We got to win first.
It's unfortunate.
To be clear to those watching, I've never done cocaine before.
Yeah, and nobody's
I've made many mistakes, but not that one.
Nobody's saying but it's just it's unfortunate that it's I don't even know where.
I know what you mean, but it's unfortunate that look.
Like you said,
everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
Everybody makes mistakes, right? And I know, as a buddy of mine told me about this, this has got to have been 3 years ago. It's been a while, but basically what happened is his daughter was like a bridesmaid in a wedding, and they were going to this wedding, and the wedding got canceled because a couple of the groomsmen had terrible overdoses the night before at the bachelor party because they took some. I mean, you can judge and say, oh, they shouldn't have been taking something, but everybody takes something at some point in their lives. We don't want it to kill people. We don't want stupid mistakes to kill people. That's sort of
right. That's
live and learn from stupid mistakes.
Right. You used to be able to live and learn.
Yes. Now it becomes a death sentence, and that's what's really, I think, changed about from now to when my mom was struggling with addiction.
Why is it so bad? What do you know a lot about the fentanyl crisis?
I mean, I know a fair amount about it. I've worried about it for a long time. I've worked on bills related to it. I mean, there are two basic issues, right? And it's like any business. There's a manufacturer, there's a wholesaler, and then there's the retail, right? And with fentanyl, it's not. You can't make fentanyl in a trailer in somebody's basement, right? It's not like meth. It takes a really complicated, pretty sophisticated pharmaceutical process. So we know that a lot of it, maybe even most of it, the Chinese are making, meaning Chinese companies, not necessarily the Chinese government, but they sure as hell know about it. And then they bring it in primarily through the southern border. And the Mexican drug cartels are like the wholesalers, right? Of the Chinese, pharma's the manufacturer. The drug cartels are bringing in wholesale style, and then it makes it in the street level.
Wow.
And I mean, it's really crazy, man. I was talking to a DEA agent about this a couple years ago, and I think this was in 2022. He was like, look, a few years ago, the cartels were making less than $1 billion a year. And he's like, in 22, 23, we think they'll make $14 billion a year.
Wow.
So like an explosion of drug trafficking in this country. And yeah, you hear about stories, and I don't think it happens that much, thank God, but somebody smokes a joint, it's laced with fentanyl, they go into a coma.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have 7 friends I have 7 friends, and not even just like estranged people, you know, like, but not all best friends.
Sure.
But I have 7 friends that overdosed and died from fentanyl.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's me.
Right. And with harder stuff, it happens a lot. Like I think you hear about it being laced in marijuana, but like not that much.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're pointing about cocaine, pills. Like you have to be careful. Like seriously,
it's a huge thing.
It's an unbelievable crisis.
And it's like, yeah, you'd think that I don't know how you fight something like that. Maybe we need to have like a head of like the DEA or something on. Maybe he would be able to help, or she would be able to help us figure that out a little bit more.
I think that'd be a very interesting conversation. But I think you've got to go to it at the heart. Mm-hmm. And something Trump did towards the end of his administration doesn't get a whole lot of headlines. Obviously, I'm biased. I think it should get headlines. Is he was using economic leverage to try to convince the Chinese to crack down on fentanyl manufacturing. Because if you get it at the source, right? That's, I think, really the way to address it.
Oh, there's fentanyl in half the bookshelves they make over there, dude. You put a fucking half a set of dictionaries, and that bitch will give way. I've seen.
I mean, I absolutely believe that.
Some bad furniture,
man, that's. What's in the furniture here? Are we okay?
Yeah, I think we're good.
But you do that. You go after the drug cartels. The other thing that people don't realize about the cartels, man, is one, we're talking about some very dark and dangerous people.
Yeah.
Like this is not some guy who's like dealing, selling joints on a college campus. These are like, they're doing sex trafficking. They're getting 11, 10-year-old girls involved in the sex trade.
Yeah, they're like
very evil people.
Dictator type of
just absolutely vile. And it's like, why are we making it easier for this like massive criminal organizations to get richer and richer and richer? Like we should be trying to make them poor. And I mean, help people who actually need it.
Well, it's obviously one of the biggest enemies. That's right. It's like, if there were an enemy that were killing, if there were somebody shooting into your country every day and killing people, at a certain point you go over there, or you send your military there, or do something to say, hey,
that's right.
We're not going to let you do this anymore.
Yeah,
that's basically what's happening.
That's right. I mean, can you imagine if Mexico sent gunmen across the border and killed 70,000 Americans a year, because that's about what dies from fentanyl? We would be in a major war, right? We just absolutely would be the case. So the other thing that's crazy about this is, so these cartels, and you see this graphic that's pretty interesting there, but the cartels are going to start to destabilize the country of Mexico. Like, do you know the name Pablo Escobar?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so like the Colombian cartels in the 70s were as powerful as like the Colombian government, right? Wow. It was a narco state. You don't want that to happen right at the American southern border, where the drug cartels have more power than the Mexican government.
Yeah.
That's just going to be chaotic. It's going to be basically a warlike atmosphere on our southern border. That's bad news.
Well, it's bad news, but it'd be great to figure out a way that to shut it down. I mean, it just feels like, if that many people are dying each year, if it were actual people shooting at these people, we would send people there in a heartbeat.
Right. I mean, and I think that's what we have to. I think not that we have to send people to Mexico, but I think that we actually have to have a military response at the southern border.
100%.
Because these are such vicious people. And I think local law enforcement, they're telling us they're overwhelmed by some of these guys. And we've got to be willing to send our best people, our best fighters, to get control of the southern border. I think that's the most important issue confronting the country. Because look, I mean, how do you even measure the human cost of 70,000 people, many of them in the prime of their life?
And the ripple effect of it too, in their families.
The orphans, the parents that are heartbroken. I mean, how many kids are, like, this is my story, right? That's why my grandmother raised me, is because my mom struggled with addiction. Luckily, my mom got clean. You've got hundreds of thousands of children who are being raised by their grandparents or their aunts and uncles. Like, that is an unspeakable human tragedy, man.
Especially when we can do better.
Like, we could do so much better, and we're failing right now. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. One of the reasons why I'm running.
Yeah.